Alrighty, welcome back everyone. It is LaughNgamez here. Today I'm back with another Starcraft 2 1 vs 1 replay cast. If you watched one of my last casts, you'll recognize these two players. I decided to cast another one of their matches, as the last one was very good. This time the map is on Abyssal Reef, so it's another PvZ here. The Zerg player spawning down the bottom right-hand side of the map, in the red. It is Storm's JonSnow. So these two players went at it before, and now they're going at it again. PiLiPiLi, also on Team Storm, the blue Protoss. So we've got a different map here for these two players matching up, and this is one of the newer maps, whereas they last played on one of the older maps. So we're going to see how this sort of works out, as these maps I believe have been out for about 2 weeks or so, a week to 2 weeks as of me casting this. So these players likely are familiar with the core of the map, but it's not exactly established meta, I assume, here, so we can sort of see anything come out. Now, Abyssal Reef, it's one of the newer maps here. It's sort of a style that hasn't been done too much. There's just a fairly defensive wall off at the front that Protoss players can go for. However, there's two entrances and they can sort of be flanked. So, versus Zerg, though, the walls should be manageable for the Protoss player here. Meanwhile, for Zerg, it's relatively easy to defend, I guess. Hard for Protoss players to sort of push in with decisive timing attacks. So we're going to see if PiLiPiLi opts for harassment or something like that. I'm mainly just sort of theorizing what these players could go for, what works on this map. This is actually my first time seeing a Protoss versus Zerg on this map, as I haven't actually watched any yet, as these maps are new, as I said. So PiLiPiLi getting his second gas here, just both players macroing up, it looks like. Very standard openings, cookie cutter openings as far as it goes. PiLiPiLi actually coming in with a probe here, harassing JonSnow's worker. PiLiPiLi, the cheeky Protoss, actually trying to get this drone here, but the probe is going to be forced back. Just sort of getting a scout off, hanging around. There's really no reason why he can't just sit around, as it's not like any Zerglings are going to chase down the probe. Although this probe could be overstaying its welcome. Two Zerglings are about to pop here. So this probe is going to get chased down. We're going to see whether it'll be able to escape. PiLiPiLi just moving in. Going to see if there's a third base. Might pile unblock it, but I don't believe that's too likely here. But these two lings are coming after this. And now JonSnow is actually going for this third base. PiLiPiLi sees it, but the probe gets picked off. But PiLiPiLi sees that the third base was going to be taken by JonSnow, so he's likely pretty confident in this situation. Now we see one Adept moving out for PiLiPiLi. JonSnow has opted to be sort of greedy with just two Zerglings here, so he could actually lose a drone or two to this Adept. It's going to be up to how he micros this. The Adept shading in here. There's no more lings on the production tab. Meanwhile, PiLiPiLi is going for a Stargate. So JonSnow is going to have to respond to aggression here for a while. JonSnow loses one drone so far, saves another one, but losing two drones. But this Adept is actually going to go down, it looks like. So 2 drones for the Adept. Not the best trade for PiLiPiLi. He sort of got surrounded there for a little bit. So two drones, though, is decent, particularly in this early game where every worker matters. Now, we see the Oracle coming out for PiLiPiLi, but JonSnow has actually gotten into the main base of PiLiPiLi here. This one Zergling has scouted absolutely everything it needs to see. It's actually harassing a worker or two here. I guess PiLiPiLi had a hole in his wall off or something. It's now a completely full wall off, but that ling must have snuck in at some point. Anyway, so JonSnow getting up his third base, and now of course JonSnow scouted this, so he's aware. He's getting up these spore crawlers. He's going to be prepared. As a result, PiLiPiLi is only going for one Oracle and then going to go for Phoenixes. Even if a Protoss player, a Zerg player is aware, Phoenix can always get some value picking off Overlords, things like that. We're going to see if it's going to be 1 Phoenix or 3, or 4 usually is the amount which Protoss players go for. And it looks like PiLiPiLi is going to be going for a third base of his own. So this is going to be a macro game here. Both players going for third bases, looking to be at just around the 4-minute mark. So very economic focus from these players so far. JonSnow just pumping out drones, not losing a single worker to that Oracle, I believe. Good save by JonSnow. This Oracle being shooed away once again. Meanwhile, this Phoenix has just popped out, and there's actually another Stargate on the way for PiLiPiLi, so he is going to be playing this mass air attack, and it looks like he's actually going to be rushing carriers here. Protoss players usually, if they're going mass Phoenix, they'll just go for one Stargate here, but if they're not, if they throw down more, it usually indicates they'd be going for carriers, but maybe he is just going to make some more oracles and force Stargate. But JonSnow, once again, good scout, seeing all these Stargates here, so he's aware of what's happening, and this is likely going to trigger JonSnow to go for a full-out attack here. Zerg players, they don't want to have to deal with mass Protoss air, so we're going to see if JonSnow decides to turn on the aggression or sort of just try to make a move which will help him capitalize. 16 Zerglings on the production tab here, so JonSnow might be trying to go for some damage. Possibly try and counter or kill off that third base. Now we see PiLiPiLi is actually going for sort of a style that sort of burst into popularity for a couple of weeks here. Protoss players sort of almost as a joke were going for mass oracles, but it's a style that legitimately works. As odd as that sounds, if you're familiar with Starcraft, you're likely aware that the oracle is a unit which just moves in, usually kills off a few workers, and isn't exactly used in fights. But now we see these oracles here are actually going to be very critical to pick off these surgeons and to defend. So JonSnow's attack here isn't going to get any damage done. He does scout the excess amount of oracles, but PiLiPiLi is just still producing them. He'll be able to start sniping important units, important structures like queens, spore crawlers, and eventually even hatcheries. So we're going to see how many oracles PiLiPiLi commits to here. He's getting +1 weapons attack. I believe that doesn't actually benefit oracles with their pulsar beam, so this will be for later use with maybe Phoenix or most likely carriers here. Now, this is going similar to the last game in which these two players played. Now, these oracles actually moving in, killing off the spore crawler. Now just going to kill off the queens here. This is the power of mass oracles. However, there is more queens coming to save the day. It's really just a lost queen. Oh, and a bit of miscontrol there from PiLiPiLi, actually losing a large number of these oracles, wanting to keep these alive for later use. But now that's a lot of loss for PiLiPiLi, as those oracles could have put down plenty of stasis wards, they could have thrown down revelations non-stop. So now that might actually make the defense for PiLiPiLi a little bit more challenging. And I say defense because Zerg players like to try and kill off Protoss players before they hit mass carriers here. We see Void Rays actually being the choice for PiLiPiLi, just making a round of Void Rays, I assume, before he swapped into carriers, as his fleet beacon wasn't finished up there. First carrier on the way. I believe they have a 120-second build time with Chrono. It works out to be about around 90 seconds. So it is going to be a while before this carrier count builds up, but if PiLiPiLi manages to get there, it is going to be very tough for JonSnow. And PiLiPiLi is actually maintaining a sort of even on supply, and for a Protoss player who's investing in a lot of tech, and that isn't the best for JonSnow right now. If JonSnow might surge ahead if he decides to go for an attack, and he is just producing basically just units right now. PiLiPiLi loses his one Phoenix with his scout, sees all his queens and hydras. JonSnow looking to push out like he did last game. These hydras and queens are going to start their march over to PiLiPiLi's third base, maybe to his main base, looking towards his third base right now. There's 3 carriers on the way. The first batch of them might be done as this attack reaches. The queens will take a long time to get there. PiLiPiLi is aware this is coming, so he's going to need to be spending all his money, and he's actually invested in an absurd amount of cannons. Now we see stasis wards going down these oracles. Only 1 or 2 stasis wards, so if PiLiPiLi hadn't lost all those oracles, he could have had even more, so that's not necessarily the best for him, but it is still going to be a very tough hold and a very tough push for JonSnow, as PiLiPiLi is quite well fortified here. The third base has a massive, well, the natural has a massive wall off. He's got cannons. We have to see PiLiPiLi trying to work, or JonSnow trying to work his way into the naturals, where PiLiPiLi sort of wasn't expecting. JonSnow, now JonSnow is looking to go for an attack. His queens are slowly marching here. So many transfuses are ranked up in these queens, so it's going to be very critical for when he attacks, but this is a lot of cannons, this is a lot of adepts, and these are the first carriers out, and the next 2, I believe, just came out. The Mothership Core is out, so this is looking to be a very scary army for PiLiPiLi. He has +1 air attack, so these units will do more damage. Baneling's actually getting decent connections on the adepts, though, the sort of tanky ground units, which are effective versus adepts, and now it's just a large amount of hydras and queens, mainly versus these air units. The cannons are putting out as much damage as they can, and so they're both on overcharges. So JonSnow has to sit back for a while. This Mothership Core cloaking everything. PiLiPiLi has fallen down a bit in the supply, but he's sort of held his core units. He's kept all his carriers alive. He's rebuilding those interceptors that he lost. And in just about another 30 seconds or so, he's going to have 3 more carriers, and that sort of could be the tipping point. 3 carriers with their plus attack and a bit of support from cannons is going to be very, very tough. You see PiLiPiLi actually throwing out a stasis trap right in front of all these units. That's not going to work. Trying to be creative there. But PiLiPiLi is aware that JonSnow is still sitting out here waiting to... More cannons are just finishing up, so PiLiPiLi is getting ready to accept JonSnow's next attack. More queens have rallied across, more hydras. And now we actually see a large number of those interceptors getting picked off. Good trades for JonSnow. They're being able to pick those off. Now if he decides to push in, there won't be as many interceptors to punish JonSnow when he does. You see +2 melee attack finishing up for these Zergans, but that's not really going to be critical right now. JonSnow has +1/+1 on all of his units, and he's taking the fight right now. These interceptors are attacking all of these queens here, but the transfuses have been used by JonSnow. So his units survived there for a long time. PiLiPiLi, he's rebuilding interceptors, but so far he is staying alive as he really has just traded off interceptors. Meanwhile, JonSnow traded off all his transfuses. He's spreading creep to the front door of PiLiPiLi, but he has yet to break him. We see +2 ranged Zerg attack on the way, so JonSnow trying to upgrade his units here, but he's sort of stuck in a way. He's trying to kill off these units, he's trying to kill off the carriers, but PiLiPiLi's up to 6 carriers. Soon that's going to be 9. Actually, very quickly that's going to be 9, and that is a terrifying amount. PiLiPiLi's approaching max, so is JonSnow. But as this game goes on, the max supply will benefit PiLiPiLi more. PiLiPiLi getting up to +3 air weapons attack, so his carriers are going to put out an absurd amount of damage versus these hydras, which are just having +1 armor finish up. JonSnow's making more hydras, but he hasn't really killed off PiLiPiLi, and so he's going to be in a very tough situation to make this work. The hydras might go in for one final attack. The carriers are actually moving out, so this could be where JonSnow tries to pounce on PiLiPiLi, but instead he's trying to retreat here, realizing that he can't take his army right now. Banelings have finished up, so he wants to be able to get on top of those adepts. The carriers alone without any support could fall to these hydras and queens, but with good support, PiLiPiLi should not lose this army right now. JonSnow wanting to take a fight, but he's a good enough player to know that if he does right now, it might not go too well for him. PiLiPiLi, though, is testing fate by moving out right now. He's actually moving down south with his carriers, I guess, just possibly going to be going for a counterattack. He's actually secured a base all the way down here, sort of a hidden expansion, as JonSnow had scouted all possible normal force for PiLiPiLi. Instead, PiLiPiLi just said, alright, I'll expand down here. Not sure how much effect that base is going to come into play this game. We see some interceptors getting shaved off here. These banelings trying to roll forward, but I mean, all the adepts just pull back and the carriers deal with them. Now we see a main fight going down. There's so many queens, there's so many hydras. JonSnow is going to want to transfuse the best he can. He's doing a great job keeping those hydras alive. So the interceptors are being shaved off. A large amount of JonSnow's army is still alive, but PiLiPiLi is taking a supply lead. However, that is a bit deceiving, as there is almost no interceptors left for PiLiPiLi. The mothership core is actually going to go down. That is a nice pick-off, but I'm not sure if it was enough for JonSnow. He traded with PiLiPiLi, but PiLiPiLi has pulled back. He's rebuilding his interceptor account. A large amount of the transfuses are gone for JonSnow. 20 more hydras on the way. This could actually be enough to possibly break PiLiPiLi. However, by that time they get here, PiLiPiLi will have rebuilt the bulk of his interceptors. And now we see PiLiPiLi is actually looking to go for sort of a flank on JonSnow right now. JonSnow, I'm not sure if he's aware of these carriers. He might have spotted them for a second. There we go. He sees them now, that's for sure. PiLiPiLi trying to take a better fight here, and now we actually see a large amount of PiLiPiLi's ground army has gone down, but these carriers are doing so much damage they cannot be shot by the hydras, so JonSnow has no choice but to fight these interceptors right now. The hydras doing their best job, but there's really no more transfuse to keep these units alive. However, once again, all the interceptors trade off. Losing all of his ground units is PiLiPiLi. So and this time JonSnow's actually sort of closed the supply gap a little bit. And since there's so few interceptors, he may be able to push the issue, but these cannons are such a solid factor for PiLiPiLi right now, preventing JonSnow just from pushing in. And we actually saw during all that chaos, PiLiPiLi transferred all his workers here. So he's now mining on 4 bases. JonSnow's got a 5th up, but he's spending all his money into hydras right away. He's now at 2-2 though. That is very important for JonSnow. His hydras will survive a little longer to the carriers. He's slowly going to be rebuilding up all this transfuse energy. These queens have been so critical for JonSnow, but I'm not sure if he'll be able to kill off PiLiPiLi right now. Supplies are even, but these carriers are absolutely monstrous, and they're moving in for another fight right here. This could be it. Whoever takes this fight could take the game. We now see JonSnow using his transfuses once again, but these carriers are putting out so much damage. The Hydra count simply isn't high enough to pick them off effective enough, and now JonSnow falls in supply. His army is sort of split up, trying to take the best fight he can. The Hydra is trying to pick up any units they can, but these interceptors are still there. They're picking up all the units for JonSnow, and it looks like this is going to be GG as PiLiPiLi manages to take another game with SkyToss versus JonSnow. Very well done. JonSnow, though, is certainly showing that it is possible for Zerg to take fights versus this Protoss army, even when it's a bit more established. However, he did not quite manage to bring down PiLiPiLi. PiLiPiLi managed to keep his carriers alive in that game. So if you guys have enjoyed this cast, feel free to leave a like, feel free to subscribe, as I'm always trying to put out as many casts as I can. If you have any casting feedback, feel free to let me know. I'm a bit stuffy right now, so maybe I shouldn't have been casting this game, but regardless, I shall see you guys next time. Thanks for watching. And oh, also one more thing, thanks to Gauntlet, this is where the replays are from, so this is why I'm casting a few of the same players as they all played in a tournament together, so that's why there's a few replays of them. So yeah, thanks to Gauntlet for releasing their replays so that YouTubers like me can cast them. I shall see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.